Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. The information on today's program was gathered from many different places and different people. If you hear yourself in the conversation, it's not about you. For personal appearances and support, please contact us at ewfw.org or give us a phone call here at 727-422-1833. Today I have my wonderful guest, Miss Robin. How are you doing today?
I am terrific.
You know, this topic today is really important. And it's because all of us in leadership positions are being asked to be on boards of one shape or another. And if you're on a nonprofit board of directors, there's a real situation that happens inside those. So today's topic is board with your board.
I thought that was clever.
I think it is too. Let's start off with, what are some of the positions on a board, whether it's for-profit or non-profit, that would need to be filled?
Well, there's a head doo-doo. I mean, whoever that person
so
is, it's a president, it's the moderator, it's the chairman of the board, it's the CEO, the CFO, any of the whatever title.
But there needs to be someone at the top.
Someone has to be in charge, and they have to be the gatekeeper or the whatever. Someone has to be in charge, and the other members of the board, no matter what it is, have to accept and acknowledge the fact that that person's in charge. They're the ones who, if it's incorporated, they're the ones whose name's on the corporate paper.
That's what I want to really talk about. If you're the president or the board, head of the board, your name is on the corporate papers, whether it's for-profit or non-profit, your name, and you are legally binding to that situation.
Right.
As far as if there was a probe on the finances, if there was a probe of someone doing something they shouldn't be doing, it all is going to come back on your desk.
And if you want to know how that works out in reality, look at what we do to our presidents.
Right.
They are head of the country. You are head of whatever your organization is.
The buck stops here.
And someone has to be the head, and someone has to be in charge. Now, as that person, if you are using parliamentary order at your meetings, you really can't make a motion.
So the president or the moderator really
you can't make a motion. You can ask for a motion. You can set it up ahead of time that someone will make the motion you really need to be made, and all that kind of things. Doesn't mean it's going to pass, but you can set those things in motion. It doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Let me ask you this. Is it ever a good idea for the president to make decisions and then do them without telling the rest of the board?
That is never, ever a good idea.
Why is that so dangerous?
First of all, it makes you the dictator, which is a different position.
Different kinds of government,
you're the dictator, and it eliminates the thoughts or feelings or ideas or of anybody else on the board, because you make all the decisions when you're going off whatever direction you think you should go without their approval, knowledge, or support. You're not going to get very far.
And that's a real danger zone.
It is.
And there's also, I want to tell, at this present time, we're talking about the head person, the president or the board, director or whatever you're going to call them. Term limits.
Term limits.
Tell me about this.
I know some of this stuff is redundant. We've done it in shows before, but it's important enough to repeat. So pay attention. When you are on a board, you are invited to the board or elected or nominated, however you get that position, for a term. Normally a term is going to be 1, 2, 4, 3, 4 years. And
that term will be written in your bylaws, by the way.
Right, theoretically. If your bylaws are correct.
And then you need to go by them. And here's the reasoning on that. If someone on your board has been there forever,
they have cobwebs on them.
You're not progressing. You're not moving forward. You're not bringing new ideas. You're just, this is the good old boy system and rubber stamp the situation because the board said to do it. And I'm going to tell you what happens, especially in nonprofit organizations, that's a killer right off the bat.
Oh, it's a killer. It's a downward spiral. First of all, people have terms. Second of all, theoretically, when they were nominated or elected, they didn't just volunteer to be on the board. That's, you don't want that person, trust me. They've been nominated and elected. They were handed a set of bylaws.
Mhm.
They were handed a job description and
What
expectations
would
and things
happen
like that.
if you were voted onto a board and you weren't given any of those things?
I would not be voted on a board if I was not provided with that information.
That's. I hope you just heard
secrets-
what she just said.
Secrets do not benefit anyone. Keeping it a secret does not benefit anyone. It harms everyone.
One of the probably the biggest red lights you need to come by. If you get voted onto a board, you get asked to be on the board,
Mhm.
and then they can say they go through a situation to vote you on, but they don't provide you with their bylaws. They don't provide you
Yeah.
with the budget. They don't provide you with what's been going on.
The tools you need to do your job.
Then I'm going to tell you that you ought to say thank you very much, but no.
And I will also tell you, if you are on a board where only most people don't ever open their mouth, have an opinion or anything else, those people are useless. So don't. And if you go to a meeting and that's the way it is to begin with, you might want to really reconsider and say, look, I don't like it when no one has anything to say. Whether I like what they say or not, at least they have something to say. And I'm okay with that. But you just can't have people sitting around that don't talk.
There is a very important piece on any board. I want to talk to a little bit about the secretary, or the person that's there to take notes.
The recorder.
The
whoever.
person that records what happens in the meeting and how important that person is. Now,
they have control over all of the history.
I don't think that they
Pay
have
attention.
to write down every single word,
No.
okay? But they do need to write down the gist of what's going on and maybe who made the motion and who, those kind of things.
If you look at, again, parliamentary order, all of these things are outlined very easily. The person that's recording records who is there.
Now, I'm going to take it a little further, though, because if that's your job, you need to, as soon as you can, type those up.
Okay, you're jumping ahead now.
They need to be written down.
They need to take notes.
Okay, take
and
notes.
I will tell you, at this point in my life, I am pretty intentional, no matter what my position is on the board, about taking my own set of notes.
Right.
Because the secretary doesn't always write the motion the right way, and sometimes the way she writes it is not exactly what we meant.
Okay.
So you need to write down exactly what the motion is. I also heard sometimes when someone's making a motion, the board's pretty big, if you would write it down exactly what it is and hand it to the recorder, so when it comes time to vote after the discussion, you know exactly what was said. There's no
gray
questions. Okay,
How
that's the
important
first thing. That's very important. So the motions need to be written down with intent. They need to be indicated that there was a second.
Okay.
And then you can talk about it. If there's no second, it goes away. Explain that to people. That's the way it is. The motion is made. Where there's nothing point in talking about it if there's no second. You can a motion. I have been in meetings when this has happened. You can stop a motion right there by not seconding it. And sometimes that's a good plan. It needs to be written down. And whoever made the motion's name needs to be indicated. The second, not so much. There's discussion, and the discussion does not need to be written down.
No.
It's just, it makes 15-page minutes, which nobody reads. And then there's a vote. And the vote is either pass or fail.
Up or down.
The head person, remember that person we talked about? The head person only votes in a tie.
But what I also suggest is when it's all over, after the meeting's over, that thing needs to be typed up and resent out to everyone on the board.
I will tell, and it needs to be done within a period of time. The boards I am on now, I'm recommending in the bylaws, it says in there, we're going to get the minutes within so many days, so many weeks, whatever.
I'm going to tell you what, as soon as possible.
I honestly just received minutes 51 weeks after an annual meeting.
Here's why it's so important to get those minutes as soon as you can. I'm
going to tell you, there were things we talked about that are not in the minutes. I'm going to tell you, I think one of the motions was not correct. I'm also going to tell you, I'm my year as past president of that, or past moderator, whatever that position is. I have no say in the next meeting, but the minutes, 51 weeks, seriously? Who remembers what happened?
And that's
why after 3 weeks.
And that's what I'm saying. It has to go out as soon as you can. And here's the reason why. as soon as it goes out, then people are able to look at it and say, just like Robin said, well, hey, that's not what we did, and this needs to be corrected,
Right.
and it can be done quickly.
Right then.
If it's waits 51 weeks, it cannot be happening.
I will also tell you that one of my go-to people for parliamentary order just told me about a month ago that the minutes can be corrected at any point in time.
Yes, they can.
I did not know that. I thought that should be done by the next meeting.
Here's the thing, though. If you wait, people forget.
Sure.
And that's just normal. So the person recording, to me, has one of the most important jobs within the board. The other important job that I'm really going to say is your treasurer, the person that is responsible for the money and the budget. Now, that person also has to know the rules on how the board is able to spend money. In other words, do they have to get a purchase order before they can provide the purchase order before they spend any personal money? Now, why is that so important? Well, it's important because if you ever get audited and you have spent personal money without getting that okay, what you have done is embezzled money. And it'll come back and bite you. So be very, very careful. And especially in nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit organizations are prime for people going out and spending money and then come back and say, well, you owe me for 20 cups.
Right.
And you can't do it that way.
It doesn't work.
All right. So again, that needs to be in your bylaws. How we're going to spend money, who's able to spend money, who's able to sign the checks, all those different things need to be in your bylaws. What do you think?
I have to get a cough drop. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I'll be back.
Robin's been struggling with this thing for months now. The other thing I wanted to cover with you is that you need to have an annual board meeting. In your bylaws, it needs to be set at what date and time and place that annual meeting is going to happen. This, again, is something that you're going to be held responsible for if you're the president or the board chairman on those legal documents. Because that legal document says that you're going to have these things. And you have to have those notes from there and also the list of people who were at that meeting. And those have to be able to be turned in if you become to an audit. Now, board meetings need to have meat. If you're just going to come together at 8:15 in the morning and be gone by 8:45 in the morning, I'm going to tell you what, that's not a meeting. And if you don't have an agenda to put forth to people at least 24 to 36 hours prior to the meeting, I'm sorry, someone's not doing it. So whose job is it to make sure that that agenda goes out?
Depends on your bylaws.
It does.
Generally, agenda is set by the head.
Normally it's set by the board directors.
Generally, it's a general agenda to begin with. Again, Robert's rules.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the point. If there's something that really needs to be talked about, and it's not on the agenda, it'll get overlooked.
Also, at the beginning of the meeting, generally you're going to say, are there additions or corrections to the agenda?
Yeah.
Sometimes you might need to reorder the agenda if someone has to leave early or it comes in late. It's a pretty simple thing. But all of your board members, your John board members, should have a purpose, not just a general. They should have a point on the agenda to make a report.
If everybody on your board doesn't have a job, they're just on the board, you don't need them.
You might need them for ideas.
I'm going to tell you that.
And things like that.
Unless your board is made up of a nonprofit and you're asking people to be on the board and they're paying money.
That's how you get there.
Okay. But I disagree with that, just so you know. I totally disagree with it. One of the things I do want to bring up, though, is board size. It needs to be in your bylaws, and you need to know what that is. So if your bylaw says you need to have 13 members on your board, how many do you have to have there before you can actually take a vote?
I should also say what's a quorum.
What's a quorum?
I mean, I've been on boards where there's been...
Is it 50%? Is it 60%?
Well, sometimes it's not even that much.
You know?
What's a quorum? Who can make decisions? And that needs to be stated.
Be very careful on those things. I'm going to suggest you never have anything in there less than 50% of your board before you can make a decision.
Monumental decision. I mean, it's just.
And I'm going to tell you why. If you don't have 50% of your board showing up to make a decision on a board meeting, why are they on your board?
Your boards aren't good. Yeah, it's not.
Why are they on your board? Why are they taking up space? So far we've talked about some legal aspects of what it means to be on a board, how that affects you. We've talked a little bit about board approval and who gives approval to take and spend money. We've talked a little bit about budget. We've talked a little bit about being reimbursed. So those big three, the secretary, the treasurer, and the director or the president, really are the big three on your board. So who else would be on your board? How about somebody in charge of special events?
That's a good idea. But I think we should go back to someone who's able to step in if the head can't be there.
Oh.
So there'll be a vice, or I prefer the word assistant.
Assistant?
Yeah,
vice sounds terrible.
Vice sounds terrible.
But
that needs to be taken care of. But you do need, whatever your thing is, an events
let me see.
person.
That would be what? Too deep leadership.
I think we heard that in some
Man,
organizations.
I think that I've learned that when I
it's
was in
important.
Cub Scouts, I think.
Things happen. I was on a board that's been a few years where the head person developed cancer about 3 or 4 months into the term. And that meant the second person had to kind of step in and do over 1.5 years as a head. And she was not something she wanted to do. She wasn't particularly prepared to do it, but it does happen. So be very intentional that the second in line can take over if necessary.
I think that's really important.
I mean, they might have another job too, which is okay. They might be the special events person. I don't know, but that needs to be important because it does happen.
Okay. So also on the board, you're going to have these other things. Somebody in charge of special events, maybe somebody in charge of parties. I don't know.
We party?
Party. But my point is every person on the board needs to have some function and some input of what's going on. If the board is going to survive and thrive and live, then these new ideas have to come in there, and these new parts and pieces have to happen. When they don't and they become stagnant, well, you've all seen stagnant pond water and know what happens there. Okay? So really start thinking about it. When Robin and I wrote this down about being bored with the board, you have to understand that Robin and I have sat on many different boards, many different situations, some paid, some for nonprofit, and some in between where they were kind of for paid for profit, but it really wasn't. So understand that where we're coming from. What we have found over and over, though, is the boards of today seem to have forgotten Robert's Rules of Order. They seem to have forgotten how to act with decorum. They seem to have forgotten that people need to feel needed and wanted to be on a board. That if they're just there to put a name so they can put it on their resume, you don't need them, and they surely don't need you.
The one thing you really don't need is someone on your board, or to be the person on the board who's only there to fill out the list of required officers.
Well,
for corporations, that's bad. Your board needs to know things like this has come up a few times lately. What are reimbursable expenses for board members?
Right.
What are and what aren't? And don't tell me when I've spent a few $100s to get to a meeting. Don't tell me thank you for your contribution, because I didn't intend to donate that much, or I didn't intend to donate in that way.
Here again,
it needs to be clearly outlined.
Those things need to be clearly written down within your bylaws,
right? And
they need to be carried out and stuck to. I mean,
adhered to, yes, recognized and exercised. And
I think that what bothers me the most is when I see the bylaws not talked about but changed without the board's approval.
Oh, see, that should be in the bylaws when it can be changed.
That really bothers me because that sends the message to the people on the board: we really don't need you.
because we can change it anytime
We
we want.
just need your money.
We need to remember when you're creating those documents that the bylaws, generally at the end will have a term that needs to be reviewed. I know right now our state has 13 amendments on the election this fall because our state constitution says it has to be reviewed and updated every 20 years. So we thought that was a long time. Most organizations that I'm involved with, their bylaws are say right in there, they're going to need to be reviewed and updated every 4 or 5 years. So, and that takes, again, a committee to do that, to present it to the board, to get passed, to get approval. And then it has to be voted on by the membership.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things. Now, that's the bylaws. The operating procedures, however,
Different story.
you
Different
can
story.
update, alter, change those anytime you need to. The board can do that at one meeting. We need this change immediately for some whatever reason. You might need to even just something as simple as changing the date of the meeting because
Sure.
something is not
Sure.
working.
Or you know,
You might need to change some people on the board suddenly because it's too much or too little and it's not working. Things like that come up, and you can change that. You might need to change your job descriptions depending on what the jobs there are or how the an organization is going to evolve. If
and
you had a
job
tea party,
descriptions will change,
and they will change.
and that's good.
And it's a good thing. It shows you're growing and paying attention.
You might see that you need more people on the board because you have more things happening.
More activities or whatever. You might have people that aren't necessarily full-time board members, but that are in charge of an activity which frees the board member up for something else. They don't have to be in charge of the activity. But those depends on your organization and what's going on.
Right. And board members, I know myself, I've oftentimes had a board position, but then I've created a committee around me
You're around a committee
to go do the work.
right. That's always a hard one.
I mean, if you're trying to do everything by yourself, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, I'll tell you a situation where one of the top 4 members of the board had to resign because they were moving. And so the position's open, but the people who are in charge of that nomination slot didn't really think they had to do anything until spring because we should change membership in the spring. Well, now we're in September or October, and we're running out without a treasurer.
Not good.
And we didn't do anything at the last meeting to say who's filling in because nobody there was qualified to fill in. And that's not cool either. So sometimes keep those things in mind. One organization even has a position called Treasurer in Training, which works with the treasurer on the year before they're going to become the treasurer, so they know how things have been done, but they can also make their own decisions on how they think things need to change for the bookkeeping end of it.
So a board really does need that ongoing, continuous recruiting situation.
Right. I'll also tell you that I hadn't thought about this. I assumed that people that were on boards had been in the organization long enough to know what was going on. But it just
you assume.
I know you assume.
Yeah, you know what that means.
Yeah, there you go. I'm scratching my head about that. So now we know that the board needs to be trained. And whose responsibility is that? Is that the nominating committee's job to make sure that people are trained and indoctrinated or introduced or
I think it's in
whatever.
It's 2 ways. The
Before-
nominating committee is responsible to make sure the person that they're nominating has all that information.
has the knowledge. Has
Okay.
been told, informed.
And I think on the other hand, that I think boards who don't have good leadership training, ongoing continuous leadership training, I've seen them die over and over and over.
Oh yeah.
And that's because this
There's
thing
no
of being,
growth,
this
there's
thing
no
about being a
development.
leader doesn't just happen overnight.
It doesn't mean you don't
You
have
know,
to learn more.
And
as
just
you go.
because you have the title, I think this is what brought this up to us today, is that I'm right now I'm dealing with some people who have titles
I'm struggling. Yeah.
and absolutely, positively no leadership ability at all, and don't want to learn, don't want to go, and so I'm having to actually step away. Now, that sounds like a quitter, I think, but if anybody knew me very well knows that I'm not much of a quitter. It's just there's times when you need to make that decision. Is this board right for you? Is this opportunity right for you? And you have to make that decision.
Right, and I've been in on boards where you think you're there to help them grow and develop and have some new ideas and stuff, and they really don't want to hear them.
Yeah, they really didn't want you to
They
say
kind
that.
of, they put you in the position because they wanted change and they thought you could do it, because that seems to be my middle name. But when it came right down to it, most of the people that had been in the power chairs before really did not want to make change. The other people did, you know.
And
that's really harsh, because again, when my term is up, I leave. And when I turned the information over to the next head doo-doo, and she said, "Oh, status quo, status quo," I went just like that, huh? Whoa, organizations can't survive on status quo, let alone thrive and grow.
And that's
sad.
I think that's why Robin and I really wanted to spend time with you today to talk about this leadership situation, to talk about board membership, and really what it means to be a board member. If you find yourself bored on the board, you don't have a job, you don't have meaningful experience, and you're there just filling the chair, you need to do the same thing, and that's do some really inward thinking. Is this a place I need to be spending my time? And do they really need me to be here?
Right. And again, if you were on the board and you know you have ideas that have merit, and you have shared them judiciously around, and no one has picked up and gone forward with any of those ideas, you really are ineffective. Whether you want to be ineffective or not, you're trying to be effective, but you are ineffective because they're not going to let you do anything. And there comes times you have to say, you know, I think I'm done. My term's not up, and you really don't want me around.
Well,
I'm getting the vibe.
And that's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to tell you what, this is going to happen to you. This is why Robert and I are bringing the information to you on what to look for if you're asked to be on a board, what things could happen. But the biggest thing, if you're asked to be on a board and they're saying they're going to vote you in, and they come back and say, "Hey, congratulations, you're on the board of directors. Here's your nameplate."
Oh, yeah.
And it's all great. But if they do not provide you with their bylaws, they do not provide you with a budget, they do not provide you with the activities that are going, and who's in charge of what, when, where, and how, and the dates and things like that.
And again,
I'm going to really suggest you say thank you very much. It was nice to be nominated. It's nice to be voted in, but I think I'm going to go down the road.
The refunds for expenses and things like that. That's really a big point.
It's a huge
for an
point.
organization. If they're spending all their money on refreshments for board meetings, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But you know, in organizations whose job it is, not for profits, your job is to bring income into the organization.
Yep.
Be very specific about what are reimbursable costs and what are not.
Remember, people spend other people's money differently than they spend their own.
They spend it a lot faster than they spend their own.
So,
absolutely.
I see that we're coming down to our time, Miss Robin.
Okay, wrap it up.
Well, on behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and Robin Powell, we want to say thank you for signing on and listening to us today and talk about being bored with your board. You know, we want to say that this has been a real privilege for us. Our goal is that you have received a nugget of wisdom and guidance that will help you build your leadership ability. And of course, if you have any questions on today's program, you can email me, dick@leadershipwrangler.com. dick@leadershipwrangler.com, or give me a phone call at 727-422-1833. You know, and if you'd like to have us come and appear in person, you'd like to have us come and speak to you about leadership, or do an instruction piece on leadership at your organization, we'd be more than glad to do that. Just go to the website, www.ewfw.org or www.leadershipwrangler.com. Set your time and date, and we'll be glad to take and work it in and see how we can make that happen. Give us a phone call, 727-422-1833. And if you really want to see these programs continue here on the radio show, you want to drop us a line, help us out to take and keep on the show. Well, Robin, what do you have to say at the end of the day today?
I hope your boards aren't boring. I hope they're growing and developing for themselves in the organization. I really do.
And you know what? I hope that you found this interesting and enough that you're going to put some time and thought process into what it means to be on a board and just how exciting it can be but not to be bored with your board.
Right.
Well, until next time, this is DW the Wrangler saying, ride hard, ride fast.